Mike? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of January 6th. If you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Before I turn this over to our town clerk to move us along, I just want to say Happy New Year to my colleagues on the council, Happy New Year to my colleagues in government, and the administrator, department heads, everyone here. Happy New Year. I think we had a lot of challenges and wonderful things, but a lot of challenges in 2015, and we look forward to a fruitful and positive 2016. So on that note, Mr. Clerk, if you could.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. To the Town Council, the first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
And before we vote on that, I'd like to pull two items, if HH7 and CC1 for the end of the meeting. HH7, CC1. Can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next item is submission of minutes of previous meetings, items A1 and A2.
I move the minutes be accepted as written.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the second reading for adoption of Ordinance 2015-24. This is an amendment to the Town Code to allow for a no parking space, basically right in front of this building.
So this is the second reading for this, and as our clerk just mentioned, it's if you're looking at the front of Town Hall, it's just a little bit to the left of there, and it will help that resident be able to get in and out of his driveway much safer. Is there a motion?
So with that, Mr. Chairman, upon all the recommendations of the administration, department heads, all the town, state laws, and ordinances, I make a motion we grant and approve the ordinance and its second reading for Chapter 16, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 5, Stopping, Standing, and Parking.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item C2. This is Ordinance 2015-25. This is the second reading for adoption. This increases the general maximum penalty fee from $100 to $500.
So again, this coincides with the violation booklet that should be at its final stages of printing out, and this will take the $100 maximum, bring it up to $500. And just to be clear on that, that doesn't mean that all fines will be $500. It means they can go up to $500, and that's at the discretion of our code compliance officer.
I would move second reading and adoption.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And finally, in the ordinance section, we have Ordinance 2015-26. Similarly, this is increasing the impoundment fee currently at $15 to $75 for redemption of vehicles. It's the second reading for adoption.
Now, in this case, I take it the charge always would be the larger number. Is that true?
Correct.
Lou, if I recall correctly, the $15, which
Predates 1972.
Yeah.
Thank you. And this $75 is in keeping with our surrounding community?
My understanding, that's sort of a basic number that you would, if you're impounded somewhere, that's what you're going to pay.
Okay.
What is the charge by the facility normally?
No, this is independent of that. This would be if the automobile ends up getting taken, like, to the Public Works Department. Right now, the max we can charge is $15. If it gets towed by Safeway, they pay the Safeway rate, which is apparently similar to this, is what I understand.
Chief?
That's regulated by the PUC, and it is currently $75 a day.
Thank you.
But this probably wouldn't happen very often, would it?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the increase impound fee from $15 to $75.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is a request for a new junk and secondhand dealer's license. This would be to call for a public hearing on January 27th.
I move that we schedule that public hearing for the 27th meeting.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I just had a question. What is this? I know what the license is, but I'm not sure what the business is.
And I think that's what we're going to find out at the public hearing. But I believe it's would be technically like secondhand store, antique kind of thing.
Andy?
Yeah, it's a gift shop. Not all their stuff's secondhand, but they are a gift shop and provide crafts materials, and some of the stuff is secondhand.
Yeah.
Great. I look forward to that.
And they've been in Barrington, I think, since '96. So they've been around.
For a while, yeah. In fact, they're moving their sign. They got permission from the zoning board Monday night, and they previously got permission from the Stark District Commission. They're going to actually move the sign that's in Barrington down here to Bristol.
Well, we potentially welcome them, I should say, right?
The one Bike Path, is that the one that's right along to that?
No, this is on the corner, Steve Brigidy's building.
No, I meant in Barrington.
Oh, in Barrington?
Yeah, was that what it was?
Maple Ave?
No, they're over on Maple Avenue.
Maple.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item E1. The council will recall that about a half a year ago it granted a dancing entertainment license to Roberto's, and this is the 6-month review of that license.
Chief, there's been no problem here, has there?
None at all.
No. So would this be an extension for how long a time?
Good question.
Indefinitely?
The licenses renew in, I should know that by heart, but July 1. So this would take it through the end of, if the council wishes to do so, through the end of the license year.
Well, I would move that we grant this license in that time period stated by the clerk.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the first item in your appointment section. This is the Personnel Board. There's one spot available with the term to expire in December of 2019. You have the application of Terry Marrera, 6 Proto Lane, which is council consideration for reappointment.
Make a motion to reappoint Terry Ann Marrera with an expiration date of 2019 on the Personnel Board.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the Juvenile Hearing Board. There are two positions in consideration, both with terms to expire in December of 2018. You have the application of Tim A. Kemi of 28 Lindbergh Avenue, who is seeking reappointment. Also, the application of Wayne Marshall, 33 Cook Street, who is interested in appointment, and Linda Lou Dubois of 21 Riverview Avenue, who's interested in reappointment also.
Mr. Chairman, given the long-standing commitment by Tim Kemi and Linda Lou Dubois, they've been with this board for quite some time, but we also have a new applicant of interest, Mr. Wayne Marshall of 33 Cook Street. I move that we continue this item and schedule an interview, and maybe interview the other two to get to know them also, maybe for some of us that haven't talked to them in the past, being on the board. So
That's a good one.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second, and just some discussion on it. I actually talked to that end of the time that they've been on the board. Linda's been on the board at least since 1994, and Tim since
Actually, that was their term to expire, so that would be 1991.
1991, thank you. The clerk was kind enough to look these up. I would like to meet both of them also, just because I'd like to know a little bit more about the Juvenile Hearing Board. I know that there's sealed minutes on this, but it would be interesting to hear what their challenges are, and they've been there a long time, so I'm sure they could give us some insight. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the Conservation Commission. There are 2 seats under consideration. You have the application of Jay Maciel, who would like the opportunity to serve. Also, Allison Ring, who currently serves, who would like to be reappointed. And you have correspondence from Clifford Woods, currently a member who is not seeking reappointment.
Mr. Chairman, again, with the Conservation Commission, I would like to thank Mr. Woods for his years of dedication that he served on the commission, and of course, a letter of thanks by our clerk that always goes out to our volunteers for these boards. I would like to reappoint, I keep saying reappoint Ms. Allison Ring to another term, and also schedule an interview for Mr. Jay Messio.
Second.
I would second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, and the Planning Board Auxiliary Member, unexpired term to expire in July of 2018. You have the application of Richard Ruggiero, 21 Kingswood Road, who would like council consideration for appointment.
With that, Mr. Chairman, first, before the vacancy, I would like to elevate Mr. Stephen Katz to first auxiliary member, if that's consented by my colleagues.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Yes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Due to protocol, I know we interview all our members for the boards. I know our applicant of interest, Mr. Richard Ruggiero, who served this town for many years, and I believe we all know him. But just because we're having the interviews, why don't we schedule an interview of his interest?
On the same day, if possible. All right.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Before we move any further, I always have to say this. Thank you to our boards and commissions, the time, efforts, and energies that you put in. Actually, I was speaking with Lou, the clerk, earlier, and some of the challenges today with there's more paperwork than you ever had to do before. There's background checks sometimes with some of the boards, and sometimes those challenges get in the way of people wanting to continue on those boards or wanting to get involved in the first place. Know this. We appreciate your time, effort, and energy, and without those boards and commissions, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So we say thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item H1. This is continued from your September 30th meeting. At that time, Councilman Stewart raised the issue of the Metacom Avenue traffic study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Clerk. Last week, myself and the Administrator and Director of Public Works, Kevin McBride, met on a multitude of issues regarding roads. We briefly touched on this topic, and it's been past conversations for quite some time, and the General Assembly just convened yesterday for their first day, and a little background of some discussions with the DOT with the magnitude of projects that are pending and being discussed right now with the Bridge and Infrastructure Fund. But here in Bristol, we are adamant, and that's why myself and my colleagues in the administration, when it comes to Metacom Avenue, I remember my colleague, Councilwoman Mary Perrella, last meeting, saying the issue of Metacom Avenue has been going on since in the 1980s till now. As a town, we've been discussing what to do with Metacom Avenue. We've been vigilant with our overlay plan, but it's going to come to a day where we're going to be just crippled with our traffic situation in this town, due with the ongoing situations that we're dealing with as a town. The administrator has been working hard to discuss with the DOT, and as we all know, it's very hard when they got all this going on. We need to be unified as a front, and I would suggest at this moment we keep discussing it. I would like a letter from this council drafted along with the administrative's letter that he submitted to the DOT, and schedule this workshop once and for all and have this discussion, because I always said, I understand there's other things in the state, but we as a council have to worry about our roads and our residents here in Bristol.
I'm going to take that as a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion. Yeah.
I'd just like to add a little bit to that, if I may. As we all know, coming back from Providence after dark with a rainy Friday evening is like impossible, and the congestion's getting worse every year. There was a big push on this 10 or 12 years ago when the state DOT brought down plans of what they were going to do, plans that were never yet implemented. But the thing that I found very, very curious in that time was they made a design where they said there was a lot of traffic from the Warren border down the ways, and then they measured that when you got down to sort of Franklin Street, magically there was less traffic. So they were going to make the road narrower. And then when it got down further to, let's say, Bayview Avenue, or a little beyond, they said the traffic got to be more, and they're going to make it wide again. I could not for the life of me, from a basic recognition of continuity, how they could ever come to that conclusion, because it seems to me if you have a wide road going into a narrow road, you're going to exacerbate the current problem. So I think if that idea should come forward again, we ought to question it, because the argument may be that, well, a lot of people turn off to go into town, but I don't really accept that, because I think that a great deal of this traffic is coming down from Providence and Warren, going to the Mount Hope Bridge and on over, and therefore there are going to be just as many of those in the part the state thought of narrowing as there is in the part the state thought they were going to make wide. So I'd just like us to be watchful for that when the next round does occur here.
And when I say ongoing things, as you could tell, the National Grid cut on Medicum Avenue, and the BCWA will be constructing more cuts on Medicum Avenue. So you can only imagine the condition of Medicum Avenue on top of the traffic pattern that we discussed last meeting through community development and the administrator. We touched upon the 3 intersections the state have already got final approval of. Talking with the Director of Public Works, it is crucial that on a timeline basis we coordinate with the state as a town like we have done in the past, so the projects stay on a timetable like we discussed, because we know that this isn't going to be overnight, so it is going to be a long process, but I think that communication is key, and that's why we have to be vigilant on this. Thank you.
Right, and I think that, like if you look on Main Street in Warren, that long trench, that is a long strip of
mess.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it is really unfortunate to see, and hopefully we wouldn't have something like that on our newer sections of Hope Street.
Right.
I mean, it is a big mess. And every time you go over it, I go like, how could they have this long of a trench that they have done? You know?
Yeah.
So it is important to coordinate, and I think we have to keep reminding everyone, as Ed has said, and people don't always want to hear that, because it only makes sense, but sometimes what makes sense isn't what happens.
Right.
Sounds like we're all on the same page on this one.
And I just wanted to add that I think the comprehensive plan, the circulation map, really nails it. I was reading an article on roundabouts, and although it does slow traffic down, it does keep it moving. How frustrating is it when you get to an intersection and you're stopped, and the other lanes, there's nobody there, and you just move ahead, it's like the timing of the lights are all off. And again, I appreciate all of you guys putting your thoughts forward. I think we need to keep this at the forefront, definitely.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Excellent.
The next item is item H2. It's a report from the treasurer regarding the Maritime Center project, which was continued from your December 16th meeting, and you have a budget update also provided by the treasurer.
So the treasurer, Julie, and Diane, and Halsey, myself, and Rick Hall, the project manager, correct? Okay. And others had a meeting this evening around 4:30. It lasted about a little over half an hour. We were hoping to come in this evening and share some concise information. Some of it can be shared tonight, but I think there's a lot of questions that are still out there. Questions, we had, as you all recall, a workshop, a lengthy workshop in regards to the Maritime Center, and that included authorizing additional dollars to do some structural improvements on the exterior walls. So there are still questions about how much was supposed to be done, how much is going to be done, and there's also questions about how much money can come from inside the project, meaning there's money budgeted, but it may not need to be spent, so it could be then reallocated towards the structural improvements. But I don't think, and I spoke with Halsey about this before we came in, I don't think we're ready to share those things in the sense of we can't give you all the clarity that we were hoping to this evening. Julia, did you want to expand upon that at all, or did I cover it?
That's fine. I think as the longer we wait, the more clear it will become as we finalize the interior work that's done, and as the CPC is working sort of with an abundance of caution, where as long as we're not upsetting the timetable on the exterior repairs, it's to everybody's benefit to wait it out and see what's remaining in the budget so that we can maximize those dollars.
So a couple of clarity points. One is that I know this whole council is very concerned. I would say the whole town and everybody who works for the town is very concerned that this stays in budget, because we don't want it to go out of budget for so many reasons. We won't explore that right now, but we're going to stay in budget with that. We all want that to happen, and we also don't want to be penny wise and dollar foolish. So we want to make sure that, that while things are open and accessible, that we don't go ahead and close them up and have to open them up later. So there's a lot of discussion that still needs to happen. We want to do that on the 27th if everyone is amenable to that. Halsey, did you want to add anything?
Well, I'd just like to say that this effort that the chairman and treasurer have addressed is simply that we want to have a good result, and we'd like the result to be as complete as possible so that we don't have to have people coming back and dribbling extra money in the future. And then the other side of it is we don't want to go over our budget, which is something that is being somewhat pressured. So I agree with the chairman. We need a little more time to get this together, and hopefully we can have a discussion of it in 3 weeks at the 27th meeting. I will say one other thing, that I attended the Capital Project Committee meeting a little bit during part of their meeting this evening, and I think it's rather good having our treasurer the chairperson of that committee, because there's a focus on money which I think is better than it has been in some of the previous projects. So I take my hat off to you, Julie, and keep the pressure on him.
So could I have a motion to continue this to the 27th? I believe that's our next one.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next, this was something that came up at the December 16th meeting. The chairman's request to have a meeting specifically outlined for future capital borrowing, and I believe we have set that meeting date as February 3rd.
And I appreciate that. I know that we all want to get more clarity on where we're going with our 5-year. Just to remind everybody, we have a 5-year capital project, and our capital project budget is a live animal, and some things are staying on it and other ones have to move out of the way because priorities present themselves. But we stick by that budget because we need to, because we have plans and projects that we want to get done. But we also understand that surprises happen. So this was important that we're all on the same page, that we know that and agree with, more importantly, where we're going in the future. So, Lou, what do you need for a motion on that?
Just receive and file, Mr. Chairman.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Following is item I-1. This is correspondence from the Deputy Director of the Coastal Resources Management Council regarding a proposed rulemaking and public hearing session on February 9th.
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is a report from the Chairman of the Bristol Historic District Commission regarding certain amendments to their rules of procedure and exemption for review and administrative review and approval authority, also known as sign-offs. You have a the actual document as a red line version, and also, FYI, a list of those portions of the agendas of the Historic District Commission which were approved administratively.
Andy, I know that you're quite familiar, and I'd like you to go through this. I have a couple of questions on this at the end, but I'd like you to share with everyone.
And I do apologize. I was away over the Christmas holiday, and we had the deadlines, and it really should have said, both of these should have said informational. There really isn't any action for the council, but the Historic District Commission wanted you to be aware of it. And if you look at I-2A, the Historic District Commission has had for a while now various things that are either exempt from review completely or things that can be approved administratively without having to go to a meeting. You just have to file an application, the staff reviews it, and they can approve it administratively. And that's actually what your second exhibit is. That's just a report, a summary report. There were 78 separate applications this year that did not go to the HDC. They were just, people came in, filed their application, got their approval, and that was it. So that's, if you want more detail, a lot of them, with the things here, roofing, re-siding, shingles, things like that, repairs, all that stuff was done administratively. Then what you have in I-2A is actually, this was recently amended in December by the Historic District Commission to increase, and that's what the redlining is, and ignore the fact that some's in red and some is in blue. Anything that's in color is new, to add additional things that can be approved administratively. Such as the fences on the street frontage if there's no change in design, construction, or material, various changes to parking areas, handicap ramps, elevators, ground-mounted things outside, like propane tanks, air conditioner things, so forth like that, within the parameters. So I think actually next year you'll probably have even more that'll be administratively approved that won't have to go to the full commission meeting.
I think it's good myself. I mean, when I saw this on the agenda, I thought, oh, goodness, what will it say? But when I looked at it, I was happy to see more of it moving over to the administrative, and I would think that even maybe some of that could even maybe move over without eventually even on the list where you don't even have to come for approval. But I do think some of these things make a lot of sense, especially if they're going to be temporary. And like the fencing, if it's not on the street frontage, like in your backyard, the landscaping issues, and the like. I mean, I think it's important, and it's, I think and I'm hoping, Dan, I don't know, so I'm happy to see this, and I support this, and I'm glad that they did that. I just have a question for you in relation to, do you know if they've been working on things like solar, or particularly solar panels in the downtown, in the historic district? Or would that be allowable? To me, it would seem like it would be allowable, especially as they get thinner.
Well, yes and no, my usual answer. There hasn't been much of a demand. Ironically, it was the town that had the plans for the solar panels, and that was approved by the Historic District Commission. They are subject to the Historic District Commission review, but the only one that came before them was approved. There hasn't been a lot of other demand. I do anticipate probably I think the problem is downtown here. The good news is we have all these beautiful trees, but between the beautiful trees and the houses together, I don't know that there's a lot of good opportunities for solar, so we may not have that much of a demand. But I expect, they'd be dealt with on a case-to-case basis. And I actually dealt with this in Providence because, and through the State Historic District Commission, because we had one branch of the state, the Energy Office, was giving grants to people for solar panels on their roof, and this guy had a property that was on the National Register, and another branch, the State Historic Preservation Commission, was saying, no, you can't put it there. And I went and dealt with them and convinced them that they should not be so rigid at it. They should look at it, as a removable thing. It's not something that's going to be there forever.
Well, remember that when you write it the other way.
Well, no, I think...
kidding. I'm teasing.
Right. No, so if we did get a lot of demand, clearly it's something to consider. I think it would be, as a lot of the things were, if someone's putting it on a site that's not visible from the street, it's going to be much more readily approved than if it's right out on your in your face, and particularly if it's on Hope or High Street. That's probably where it's going to be more problematic.
Well, the reason I raise it is, I don't think there are too many of the companies. I'm not exactly sure what they're called, and I'm not really sure if they're coming. I know that there's, Massachusetts, there are other groups that target certain parts of states where they work out this contract with you, where you're renting the panels or whatever it is, and your energy costs go down. Through that, and whenever we've all run into those companies, whether you walk into Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever you may go, and you start talking to the person, and then you say like, oh, we don't do Rhode Island yet, or we don't do the East Bay. At some point, I'm sure that we're going to have the opportunity to be able to participate in those kinds of programs, and if we do, I would imagine that if, I understand your comment about the trees and the proximity of the houses, but for those houses that would be able to be suitable, and, like if you're going on the south side, it's all the way down, it would probably be a big savings, because these houses are not the most energy efficient in the historic district.
I agree, and I think it's in everyone's interest to do whatever we can to allow people to make these houses energy efficient so that they are preserved. In fact, that's what keeps the history here. So that's why one of the things like storm windows are totally exempt. If you want to put storm windows up, you don't even have to come file an administrative permit, because we know that those are one of the most efficient ways to make them energy efficient and make it better to live in these drafty old houses. And the same thing I agree with the solar. Anything that can be done to help preserve them that doesn't hurt them, as long as you're not drilling into some brick surface and you're going to leave permanent scars on the property, by all means, let's put them up there.
The interesting thing, Andy, is that as you say, they don't take cognizance of storm windows, but apparently they do take cognizance of storm doors. And previously, they always said they did not have any relationship to screen doors, but I see that's been added.
Yeah, that was more just a technical thing, because usually they're the same thing. Usually the storm door and the screen door is the same door with a different inset. Right. So, and it's just the fact, usually, a door is much more of a significant feature as someone's, driving by. And again, it's administrative. You don't have to go to the commission or anything. But I think it's to try to prevent,
Well, I thought review by staff. Oh, I see.
Right. Yeah, it's review by staff.
Yeah.
So it's reviewed, but it's not. It's not prohibited at all.
So if you have an ordinary screen door, probably nobody have any trouble?
Exactly. Certainly, it's only if someone has, an old wooden door with the louvers and they want to replace it with an aluminum door, then there might be a problem. And in that case, even then, if it's denied administratively, it's going to go to the commission so that someone can make their argument there. They always have that backup.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been an improvement over previous years that the staff can do more now than they used to, because it enables the board to concentrate on bigger issues and not spend so much time in trivia.
Yes.
And bog down not only the process, but people having to come and get nervous about it, and being able to come, if you're elderly or whatever the case may be, to get the permission for something relatively simple. I think it's a lot more user-friendly the way it is now, and as it's been moving and evolving over the last several years.
Yeah. I'd like to thank the Commission for these revisions. We as a council and administration and our boards and commissions, if you noticed over the past couple of years, little by little, we're taking steps to, whether it be our ordinances or these subtle changes, to make a better environment, easy process for our residents and our town. With that, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file I-2A and I-2B.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, the next from the Director of Community Development, providing for the council the comprehensive community plan update. The public hearing is scheduled for January 12th. This would be the first reading. Also, at your places is sort of an explanatory memo from the Director of Community Development that somehow didn't quite find its way into the agenda, but it will mark it as received at meeting.
So as the clerk just mentioned, this is just first reading. We had a lot of information on this. We're going to take the time with Planning Board on the 12th, which is next Tuesday, to go through the finer points of this. So we just need a motion for first reading.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Diane, have you been practicing this script for next week? Seems like an awful big script. Okay.
So there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
That's a long meeting. This is the short meeting tonight.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next, the next item is item I-4 from the treasurer regarding a resolution to borrow, and this is for equipment capital or capital equipment lease, and the draft resolution is provided.
Julie.
So what you have in front of you is a proposal to lease a pool of DPW equipment items. It's actually about $713,000 worth of equipment that through a couple of DEM grants is going to, if we go for this, will cost the town $512,000. So some of the items on this list, or all of the items on this list, include a street sweeper, a catch basin cleaner, a recycling truck, a small truck, and a backhoe. So, yep.
Director McBride, could you kind of shed some light on what's currently there and why these are needed?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Appreciate the opportunity. As Julie just mentioned to the council, the first couple that are listed there is a follow-through on a DEM grant that was worked on very hard by other members of the staff, to include my predecessor and Ed Tanner, securing that 50% grant money. So this was the execution of that part to actually purchase the equipment and secure the 50% funding to go towards those pieces of equipment. Much-needed equipment. Street sweeper, which is not similar to the ones that we have. It is a bit different. It's a non-water type street sweeper.
What's the distinction? I understand what non-water is, but I mean,
no
why?
water utilization, and it has to do with reducing the dust and whatnot, and also giving a better product. It's all about water quality, the material that gets into the catch basins and whatnot, going further downstream point source distribution in the water stream to reduce that. And that's
So is
one
it-
of the elements.
Is it fair to say when we keep the streets clean, we have to do less drain cleaning and all of that fun stuff? To some extent?
To some extent, I would say theoretically that's true, but you got to get to the point where they're all clean to start with, and then I'd say, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
So we're not there. We've done a tremendous amount in the last few months on the catch basin cleaning and drainage system cleaning. The recycling truck, as you know, earlier this year, I had to pull one of our vehicles off the road because of safety reasons. I just couldn't let it continue to operate, and that is to replace that truck. Right now, we're basically down to 3 trucks on a good day. A couple of weeks ago, we had 2 that were down, so we were struggling to meet the recycling rate. This will replace one of our older vehicles in the fleet.
I actually went to DPW, and Kevin was kind enough to give me a tour in the back of this is the light blue truck.
Correct.
And if you stand at the back of the truck, it was up on the lift, the I-beams that are the frame of the truck were actually bowing out. So it was used well.
Good.
What year was that, Kevin?
I want to say that was in 2000. I don't have that information in front of me, unfortunately.
Okay.
I do for the other vehicles, but I don't have that in front of me. And that would become a frontline vehicle, and one of our older models would slip to the backup, as you know, as hopefully the recycling will go up in the future.
Sure
but
will.
we need to rely more and more on a third truck going forward. So that's a critical element. The backhoe, was in the 5-year capital plan originally. We've had failures and a significant increase in maintenance costs of the backhoe utilized at the transfer station, where you do a cost-benefit analysis. It made no sense to continue to sink money into that piece of equipment. And we actually got a very good negotiated deal with Caterpillar, and we also got a good deal on our transitioning our old equipment back to them, which supported this effort. And then the final piece is the small Ford Explorer to replace a 1999 double hand-me-down piece of equipment. Was originally in the police department. And again, the cost of maintenance on the vehicle has gotten very high, and we've had some significant challenges with that particular vehicle.
So, Kevin, you were saying there is some trade-in value with some of the older equipment?
We trade in wherever we can, and I did on the older backhoe. I've got a very good deal with that, going to the new piece of equipment. What we did is we got a leftover 2015. It was still brand new, but it was a leftover, like you know, in a automobile dealership. You get a good trade-in value, plus you get a good value for your money with a piece of equipment that's still out in the yard. So I think that summarizes each piece of equipment.
Thank you.
So the terms on the proposed borrowing for this is 1.9% interest rate over a 7-year period. So I felt like that was a very good rate, and if the council would like to pursue this funding option to obtain this equipment, then I would just ask that you pass the resolution that you have in front of you.
Is there any reason why we should not?
No, I mean, we will be discussing at our workshop, at our capital workshop, our future capital needs, as well as I'll have a debt analysis for you. We'll have a 10-year look. I'll show you a comparison of how Bristol falls within, compared to other communities that are similar to us. So we can have a deeper analysis of that at our capital workshop. But this, in the borrowing world, this is considered a very small borrowing. It won't impact any of that, so I don't see any reason to not proceed with it.
So, Julie, this is $82,000 a year for each of 7 years. Are there other equivalent payments in process now for DPW equipment?
Yes, I think we're finishing up. I don't think there's too many years left on a recycling truck. But the other capital leases that we have done are on the heavy rescue for fire and on another fire truck. So those are the three that we have done in town.
Yeah.
And in times where you have limited, capital in your operating budget, it can be a good way to fund some of these larger equipment items.
Well, it strikes me this is a pretty good way to do business, especially where you can get these low interest rates right now, because by the end of the 7 years, the normal interest rates will probably be a lot higher, and it'll seem like a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's this council's pleasure?
I would move that we accept or approve the... Adopt the resolution and move forward with this. I think it's impressive that we keep our equipment as long as we do and try to keep it going and fix it and patch it until it's just not serviceable. And I think that is, that's much to the employees' credit in these departments. And so when we have to do it, we know that there's a need. So
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Go ahead.
I just quickly wanted to just say that I think it's a smart investment, and we're not pouring tax money into bad investments like these old vehicles. I mean, especially when we have a recycling truck that looks like it's falling apart and there's safety issues there. I mean, that brings to the forefront that we need to make sure we're trading these vehicles out and making sure everybody's in safe vehicles.
Well, I think as a council administration, we talked about this when we projected the capital plan way back when to be proactive on these measures, that every year we're going to have these situations where these things come up. It's just life in itself, and these are tools that are much needed. So, but I think we're still on the right track of the capital plan that, we're progressing with and whatnot, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just ask one other clarification. One of these items is a catch basin cleaner truck. Not a lot of money. But what is the similarity between this catch basin equipment and that of the wastewater treatment department? Because they have a very good machine for monitoring lines and I think cleaning out basins as well.
Yeah, is this on?
Yes.
The two different pieces of equipment for two different types of operation. I think the one you're referring to from the sewer department, I'll defer to Jose on that, but is the one they use to flush their lines. And quite honestly, we use that quite often in partnership with them when we come upon a drainage line that's plugged. Their particular system is set up to break through that plug.
Well, that's exactly the point that I was getting to. I think it's so important that your two departments cooperate, and I know you do cooperate well, because we don't want to have identical equipment in both departments and not be used all the time.
Not at all, Councilman. In fact, the catch basin cleaner truck that is on this resolution is actually a mechanical type equipment. You've probably seen Rhode Island Department of Transportation and the ones going down Hope Street with a clamshell on it to clean out the catch basins. That's different than the vac oil truck that we have today. The vac oil truck that we have today has the ability to vacuum, so to speak, the catch basins, but it uses a water system. The intent when this grant was put together and applied for was to utilize this piece of equipment all months of the year. It can be used in the winter if we have a plug system, a basin, because it's not based on a water system and freeze, which our vac oil truck is. In fact, we just winterized that vehicle today. Because we just can't afford to have those lines freeze on that truck. But this particular piece of equipment is more mechanical and actually cleans the basins and debris out and dumps it into the back of the truck for disposal. But we do work very, very closely with our partners in the Water Pollution Control Department to clear our lines. And we utilize their camera a lot, too. Jose and his team is always there to help us out when we ask for it.
Thank you.
Very satisfying statement.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, for the council's signature, Julie, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the rate, which is there's blank on this. 1.9%.
This is a strike while the iron is hot kind of thing.
Change your mind.
Sign the check now.
No mind change.
Yeah, for everybody.
Press hard, 3 copies.
everybody.
Huh?
Oh, we all said, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that.
Everyone signs that, please.
Okay. I thought it was just the chairman. Okay. I'll take it back on this side. While we're all here, so no one's like, come on down when you get a chance.
So, Mr. Clerk, as we move through this.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is the draft budget workshop schedule for the upcoming budget cycle.
So the clerk and I spent a lot of time discussing this, and the clerk spent a lot of time creating this schedule, which includes the multiple workshops that go along with our yearly budget, and then the final meetings that start, let's see, April 4th, 20th, and 27th. Council Vice Chair Sweeney mentioned that he has a challenge with the April 20th meeting, which is the public hearing, or at least that's the way it's scheduled right here, and asked if we could move this. And speaking with the clerk, it's not as simple as moving because of a lot of things work concurrently, and what I speak of there is state requirements, our local charter requirements, and then advertising requirements when we work with the Phoenix. That's what we've decided to use the newspaper. Now, we can obviously use the Providence Journal, but it gets a lot more expensive. But simply put, the only day that this could move to is April 25th, which is a Monday. And as if you look at the schedule, you can see that Wednesday, April 27th, is the special council meeting for final consideration of the budget and the vote for the adoption. And the clerk pointed out to me later this morning that Tuesday is also the presidential primary on the 21st. So it's a challenge, excuse me, I apologize, on the 26th. So it's a challenge, but Vice Chairman Sweeney asked if we could at least consider that. Did I express that well, Lou? Did I cover that? Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Please.
Well, I just wanted to raise one other one as I saw this, and I realize that we all can't be at everything, but the Thursday, March 24th is Holy Thursday, and I know typically we don't have budget hearings. It all depends when, of course, when Easter falls, but I don't know if there's a way to move some of those. It's relatively simple, I think. The fire department is probably the largest department there. The Board of Canvassers is going to be what it's going to be as far as what it's going to cost to run the elections that we have this year coming up, and the other boards and commissions, to either add one of those to the other nights or to come at 5:30 so that we could be done by 7, something like that, because, I mean...
For myself, 5:30 would be absolutely fine.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that people feel, I mean, I wouldn't be able to come if it were,
My suggestion is I'm all for 5:30 for security measures, to be ahead of the game. But I think we also try during budget if we can fit it in accordingly, and
Get
we
as
might
much
not
in as
even
possible.
we'd have to mark it. See, the other ones we say, so we'd have to put these in, like, like if we could put one on another night, take 2 other nights and put, each department in another night, add one per one other night, then we wouldn't have to do that night at all.
So let's do this before we go too deep in. Mr. Clerk, before we look at what we can move around, can everybody potentially do 5:30 for Thursday, March 24th?
Sure.
Yes.
Is there anyone who can't do Thursday at 5:30 on March 24th? Okay. So part 2 would be how the particulars of moving what where, right? And do we need to discuss that right now?
Oh, I think if the council were willing, Lou could just do it.
Well, I mean, if it's just to move it up an hour and a half, then we do it.
But I don't think we'd get done in an hour and a half, so...
But the thing...
Can we take one of those and move it to another night?
What I would suggest, okay, is that just so you know how this evolved, and I believe this was actually Councilwoman Perella's suggestion initially, is that there are some of us who are here for every single evening. So the ones that are listed as may be discussed are the ones that involve the treasurer and me and you and the administrator and really nobody else. That doesn't mean that we can't possibly put, as you said, the Board of Canvassers tends to be fairly brief, so that we could probably put into another slot comfortably and not really upset the apple cart too much. And we could possibly also, move the others around to make that other evening unnecessary. The other thing that you do have available to you, I hate to use this because I'm all about safety nets, but we do have the Tuesday, March 29th, which last few years I don't think we've needed it. The extra day.
You're right.
My personal opinion is move it to the suggested 5:30, and this council will be the 4th. Actually, I take that back. Everyone here will be the 4th time we're all together doing this. So I think there'll be some refresher, but a lot of it is old hat for all of us together. And I know some of you have been here much longer than some others, including me. So that being said, I think 5:30 is more appropriate because those wiggle spaces are important if necessary. As you've mentioned.
No question about it. The other thing that we might do too in the process, because even though when this is adopted, we publish it right afterwards, but the same 48 hours notice for amendments is still stands.
Okay.
So what we might like to do, just to confer with the administrator, and the treasurer, of course, is that we haven't seen the proposals yet. Okay, and in case we think that one particular proposal for that evening is going to run a little bit longer, then we can take it out of the mix and move it to a different evening.
That's an excellent idea.
Okay, because right now, even the time that's put in here, you know that those are meaningless. It's just a guideline, really. So if someone is coming in with some new initiative that's going to require a lot of discussion, then obviously we'll pull that out of the mix and put it on to another night while they go through their part of collecting the data from the departments. Perfect. Because right now there is none. Okay, so
that makes a lot of sense.
And we can do that just using the same evenings and do the 5:30, and maybe in an hour or so you might be out.
Thank you.
So we have that for the
Commission
24th.
should be quick, too.
What's this council's pleasure, Tim? What's this council's pleasure for the April 20th to the 25th?
I have no problem.
I have no problem.
Thank you.
With the 25th.
Yeah.
I just want to make a point, okay, just so that you realize, and this is not necessarily a strenuous objection, but realize that the presidential preference primary, which the clerk comes to work at 5 o'clock in the morning on the Tuesday following the public hearing, is a very, very long day. It's from usually, I get up at 4 and get to bed about midnight on that day. So that'll be the day following the public hearing.
Lou, could Jen cover? for you?
I'm not comfortable with that, no.
Oh.
So what's this council's pleasure? We got those two changes. You've heard Lou's concerns. I think he and expressed them well. But I also think that unfortunately, because you can't be here, Tim, you're the vice chairman, and you want to be here for the public
Yeah.
hearing.
I do, and it's really important for me only because we need to hear from our constituents in regards to any issues. Last year there was Explore Bristol, and actually was a pretty big issue in the newspaper and everywhere else, and I just want to make sure I'm doing my due diligence when I go ahead and make a final vote on the budget. And but I really appreciate all the compromises, Lou, and everybody here, especially my colleagues. Thank you.
So can I have a motion to that effect?
Yes. Could I please make a motion to move the public hearing from April 20th to the 25th?
And could you also make that in that same motion that we would up the time on March 24th?
And we would up the
To
time on
5:30.
March 24th to
Am I correct?
5:30 p.m.
Yes.
start time.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a request for executive session, and then we have the individual council member agenda items beginning with the chairman.
So I see it's a little bit before 8 o'clock. It would be nice to be out of here at 8:03 or so, right? So let's see if we can get that done. I'm going to speak quickly. Happy New Year again to everyone. I wish everyone a wonderful 2016.
I didn't forget.
I wanted to add a couple of things. Some of the conversation came up earlier. We're going to have something in front of us soon about solar panels and a tax credit for them. Or I should say, not a tax credit. I apologize. There won't be any additional tax assessment as a proposed ordinance change. And what that means is, so if you want to put in a $20,000 array, you're not adding $20,000 of value to your home, at least on the tax rolls. That'll be in front of us so we can discuss it, and that'll be coming hopefully in the next meeting or so. I've been working with our reps and to get the 20-mile-an-hour signs in downtown Bristol for our school zone. The chief was a big part of getting both the appropriate areas for it and then getting the State Traffic Commission to approve that. So I'm working with our state reps to get that paid for. I should say our state reps and senators. I should be a little more specific with that. In that point, we actually pulled a couple of consent agenda items, which I forgot as I started to talk.
No, I was going to get to those.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Okay. One of them that I'll come back to, that since we're going to get to that, recycling. We have the new no bin, no barrel is in force. And I was at DPW on Monday, I believe, or was it Monday or Tuesday? No, it was Monday. And I listened to a multitude of calls of residents calling in, of our guys on the trash truck calling in saying that there was no bin out, so they couldn't pick it up, or they did actually pick it up, but they put stickers on to tell people that, hey, just to remind you, this is what you need to do. So I wanted to take a moment with that and talk about what you can and what you can't do. My neighbor, not right next door to me, but a neighbor that's near me, mentioned to me that he didn't know that you could put your bottles and your paper all together in one bin. Now, some of us say, well, yeah, how come you don't know that? Well, and others said, oh, I didn't know that either. So I think it's important that we maybe help people. I think we're assuming some things that everybody knows, and maybe it isn't as clear. So I'd like to make sure that, I know when they call DPW, they'll get clarity on it. While I was standing there, a gentleman came in to pick up a bin, and he said, how come they don't pick up metal? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, he started explaining a particular kind of metal that he wanted to put in, and they can't do that. He said, well, what do I do with it? You bring it to the transfer station. And I might know that. DPW might know that. Maybe all of you know that, but not everybody does.
Right.
So what do? You can call DPW, you can go online. You can check it out with, there's a form that was made by the state of Rhode Island. That's a great rundown of what you can and can't do. But it's only part of it, because we talked about earlier about what is a pizza box, when can you do it, how much grease can it have, what, is there a greasometer I put on it? Oh, this is too much, I got to throw it away. So that's the kind of stuff that people get frustrated with. So let's reiterate, what's the answer? If you're not sure, a bottle, yes, you can throw it in. If you're not sure about the pizza box, it's okay to throw it away. Nobody's going to get mad, really. And we'll figure it out together. But there's a lot more that we can recycle that we don't. Why do you want to recycle? Because it saves money. It saves the earth. It saves us a lot of money. It's actually not recycling. It's about throwing away less trash. And when the less that we throw away, the less that we have to pay for. We don't have to pay for recycling. In fact, we get money back on it. It's not that much, but so take the time. If you're not sure about it, put your bin out. Put your barrel out, and you say, well, what if there's nothing in it? Put it out.
Yep.
And if you put 2 things in it, you know what's going to happen is that you put 2 things in, and then you figure out that you can put 4 things in it. I also heard a story while I was there. There were a couple of land tenant owners, people who own multiple properties, that picked up over 45 blue bins, which was interesting, which told me, and told obviously everyone else, that there's more recycling that can happen. Mm-hmm. Again, it's as much recycling as it is less trash. So bear with it. I give DPW hats off, because it's a lot of work. I know it's a challenge for the guys. I know it's a challenge for the people in the office. I know it's a challenge for Kevin. But we'll get there, and it's a positive thing ultimately. On that note, we're going to spend some time in 2016 to look at compost. I've talked to Tony about this and others, and I want to look and see why we do what we do right now and how we can save some money. Our budget's coming up. It's a lot of money that we spend there. I think there's money that we can save, and if we're doing everything right, great news, let's not do anything different. But if we can improve upon that, let's do that so we can save some money there. One more thing, Wally School. I know that there's been a lot of efforts with the Arts District, looking at that with Roger Williams University. But I think we need to take the next step on that as a town and say, what do we need to do to make that habitable? Because regardless of what goes in there, it needs heat, it needs to be buttoned up, it needs to have the lead taken out and the asbestos, wherever it happens to be, and make it habitable. We're never going to be renting that out to anybody if we don't get those things done. So I think we need to take a look at that and put that as a priority, because every day it's there, it costs us money. Every day it gets worse and worse and worse. So I want to focus on that as a council in 2016. That's what I got. Thanks.
Mr. Sweeney.
You left me 30 seconds.
I did.
Go through.
I know, I talked a lot. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, again, Happy New Year. I hope this is a really great one for you. And keep an eye on those New Year's resolution. Take it one day at a time. You'll get there. The chairman said it beautifully on the recycling. It's the first weekend. It's a change. But I want to thank everybody for their cooperation on this. It takes, we're all working together. And I think, again, getting that word out and keeping the education strong and up the forefront is key. And just want to thank the DPW. I've got countless iMessages that are coming in through Facebook just saying how the DPW had taught them not to take their recycling in right away, to leave the recycling out there with their trash and make sure everything's picked up. Otherwise, it's not going to get picked up. So, it's just that small transition period, and we're going to get there. So it's and I think in the next couple of weeks we're going to be recycling pros, hopefully, and the recycling will go up. But that's it. You said it beautifully, Anthony. Thank you.
Ms. Perrell.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Well, I want to wish everyone a very happy new year as well, to my colleagues and to everyone who's watching this. And just on the recycling topic, to the chairman's point, the Sarah Kite Revis article this week in the Saturday Journal, which drives me crazy sometimes because she gets very precise details of what you should and shouldn't do and how much grease should be on the pizza boxes. This week's column was about being a good recycler. Not a perfect, not a great, just a good recycler. And it was very much to the chairman's point about, if you don't know, throw it away. We just need to do better than we've done. And it was very different than her usual columns, I think. I think Mike gets a chuckle out of it because I think he reads that as well. And, it's usually like this and that, and this way here, and you have to do it that way, and if it doesn't have this, and if it's this size, and you go like, this is way too complicated,
Right. Right.
And so, if anybody has a copy of the article still, it might be worth just having it around out there. Somewhere, because it was interesting. The other thing I wanted to just reference, and I had spoken to Tony about this, as I had a call, I think maybe a couple of us did, which raised a very good point from a constituent, raised a good point about the flags flying in the winter, particularly on the town common, which is our centerpiece of our community, and the flag down as we're entering town near the gas station.
The absolutely perfectly straight flagpole, that one.
Yes, that
Okay.
one, yeah. The absolutely better get out there and calibrate it.
Sorry.
Is it still perfectly straight,
Yes, it is.
Halsey?
Yes,
just
it
to
is.
make sure.
Yeah, I put my level against it. It's really cool.
Excuse me.
And, I know that I didn't realize it was a policy to take them down in the winter because the winds are so strong but as the person pointed out, people didn't fight for our freedoms in just nice weather. They fought in all kinds of terrible weather.
Wow, that's really good.
Winter, cold. If you look at a current in the Middle East, there are sandstorms and crazy cold nights and hot days. If you look at Korea, they were in the middle of winter and cold and snow. So I think it's a good point, and I know that they're expensive flags, but I think that we could afford to do that. So I would just ask the administrator to reconsider that policy, at least for those two locations. And it's really the one location because you still have it flying down at this straight flagpole, the perfectly straight flagpole. And because some of them could be tilted, but the town common, if you could reconsider that. I told him that I would bring that up, and I think he made many, many good points. So.
Kevin?
I think that's a wonderful point. I mean, in your reference to that we don't just fight our country's battles in sunshine. But one thing that goes along with that we need to pay very, very close attention to is that those flags need to be flown properly.
Yes.
And I will not leave a flag up that's torn or shredded.
Yes.
Because that's a disgrace. So the only point
And I agree with you on
I
that.
say that is that we have to be cognizant of the replacement piece of that. We have to budget that, and we have to make sure that we've done that so that when we take one down, we can pull one back up to meet those requirements.
I will speak for the whole council and tell you that you will get zero objection for the budget necessary to make sure that those flags are correct. So,
And that was my
how's that?
point, because I think, we'd all love to fly
Quote
them
me.
every single day, but we got to pull them down when they're torn and shredded. Thank you.
I know we've had some that have been in pretty bad shape.
That's a good point.
That's it, yes, thank you.
And Mr. Stewart.
I hope everybody had a healthy and happy holiday season. I feel like I should say something about recycling, so I will. I actually had some constituents, and we as a council, when we draft these new ordinances or any type of work going forward with the town, we always say that once we craft something, if something has to be revisited, we will. You just have to approach us, we will discuss it, and one of the topics were from landlords that have multi-dwelling units, and the responsibility, and their answer is, we want to recycle, but when it comes to the discipline to their tenants and making the tenants do it, they just would like to have a discussion with the administration and this council. Maybe we can set that up just for a conversation so we could just streamline that and see what the concerns are. Also, other than the money that we can save, whether we talk about roads or recycling, we have to think as a state of, the capacity and the life expectancy of our landfill. up in Johnston because it's coming to a closure. So every time we do more recycling, that's less trash that we go to Johnston, and we could get more life out of our landfill as a state as a whole. So those are my 2 inputs for recycling. Okay, I feel good now. Other than that, yeah, Happy New Year. Look forward to just diving into the budget and getting busy with that, and look forward to working another year with my colleagues. Thank you, Mike Davis, Archie Martins, everyone who came out tonight.
Can you turn the mic? Can you turn the camera around the other way?
And that means everybody's nice and toasty at home, looking at home, and thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Harrisoff.
Well, I'm very pleased that, Mary, you brought up the issue of flags, because I've gotten a couple of calls along the same lines. Perhaps we all have. I think that it's okay for a homeowner to maybe not use their own flag in the winter months or inclement weather. But I really think for a town, a public institution, that we have a responsibility to show our patriotism 365 days of a year. And so I think I'd like to reiterate Mary's request that the town administrator and your staff review the policy. It seems to me the issue of whether you can leave them up or not is strictly a matter of whether they're illuminated. And I think we're doing a good job having the flag here at the town hall. Police department's good. And I agree that we should have the flag at the common. And if that isn't properly illuminated to make it legal and proper at night, let's find a way to properly illuminate it. It'd be easy to put a spotlight from the gazebo pointing up at the flag so that it can be something there for everybody and the youth to see and be proud of all the time. And then I definitely think it's important that that be the case at that flagpole at the north end of town, because when you come down from Warren and you see that long stretch of road, isn't it great to see the stars and stripes in your view for several minutes as you approach that flagpole, and you think, well, now I am getting into Bristol, where our citizens really care about our country and they're patriotic. So perhaps the most important thing is consistency. I mean, if you can't have every single flag up all winter, why not have a policy of consistency where we may come to expect some to be up and that they would be there all the time? And I agree with the chairman that if money's a problem, we'll find a way, either by the budget or donations, to pay for enough flags that we can be proud all through the year. And I wonder, Tony, if you could get back to us about this on the 27th to tell us what, if any, policy change you may be able to institute by then.
I can actually respond to that this evening. I have the information, and you're right. The policy was mainly remove the flags for the winter time, with the exception of the town hall and at the intersection of Hope and Thames Street. And yes, funding was one of the issues. You're talking about anywhere between $375 to $400 per flag for either one of those 2 locations,
where do you
as well
buy
as the town outside of the building here. However,
where do you buy these flags?
These here, we used to purchase them locally, but they actually were more expensive than for us to purchase them online, and that's what we've done now. And we actually can get a better bargain by doing what we're doing. However, they still coming out at that cost. But that being said, the issue at the town common is not lighting. It was just a matter of, because it's a high pole, the flag takes its toll. It needs to be replaced just about once a month during the winter time. So, but that being said,
please explain that a little better. I didn't quite understand.
The town common, it's not an issue about lighting. There is a spotlight for the flag there, right on the top of the gazebo, and it is functional. At one time was not. It was brought to my attention. We made sure that the bulb was replaced and is back to
So what is the
function.
issue there?
It's just the cost of the flags there at the common. You're looking at either one of the 3 sites, whether it's at the corner of Thames and Hope, the town common and outside here of our building. Those flags go for anywhere between $375 to $400 per flag.
Well, how big are those flags?
You're talking about 12 by 18 and 8 by 12s.
The town common would be the 12 by 18?
That's correct.
And the 8 by 12 is where?
8 by 12s are outside of the town hall and at the intersection of Thames and Hope.
Okay.
If I may.
What we've done is we actually have tried to recycle some of the flags, some of those large flags. The folks at the senior center, we have 2 ladies there that have been very willing to take some of those flags, and during the winter time we tried to recycle those. So because obviously with the 4th of July, there's certain instances where we're going to put up a new flag, but in off-season we tried to use some of the recyclable flags, and we've been very fortunate to get a few of them done that were able to be cut and sawn to a good shape.
I'll tell you an amusing thing. When I was town administrator, there was quite a lot of talk about the flags, and I consulted Colonel Barboza. You remember, he used to fly kites everywhere, and he was a very proud serviceman, and he told me something I found rather humorous. He said that he had so many sets of underwear, and he had a program, being very military, where he would cycle them through a certain period of time. And when he got to his red, white, and blue underwear after trying quite a few other ones, he said that was time to check on his flag and take it down and make sure it was all right. So I don't know that
a reminder in his calendar.
I don't recommend. Yeah, calendar might work as well. But the point is that he was.
What is the point?
Well, the point was that Colonel Barboza had thorough discipline, and he was consistent. And I tried to follow that. I didn't use the underwear method, but I did try to be consistent from time to time, and I think that should be what we strive for, to put them up. And I would like to also ask you if you could give us, let's say in 3 weeks, an annual cost of flags, the 12 by 18, number of flags times price, and the 8 by 12 times 2 locations, times price, and the number of days they go, and let's have a look at what the cost
budget's
really
coming
is.
up. It's a perfect time to do this.
Right. So certainly, there could be something that I would include in the budget. I can give you those numbers.
But I mean, just tell us what the cost is. Maybe we get somebody to contribute some of the money too.
Ed?
If I may, Halsey, you had a creative suggestion. You mentioned the word donation. If you did not already draft that letter of the competition of you being with the tallest flagpole compared to Donald Trump, maybe in the same letter you can ask if you would like to donate some flags.
All right. Why don't I do that? I haven't sent that letter to Mr. Trump yet, and I will add that into it. Say that we wouldn't mind his help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Now, the only other thing I'd just like to mention that 2 institutions that are in the offing are looking pretty good. Tinker is finally going to get its establishment going, so that there'll be a place, hopefully, for would-be inventors, young, middle-aged, old, to go and work and build things out. And the Rhode Island Heritage Hall of Fame, which the council has endorsed in principle in a very helpful letter, may well come to Bristol, not necessarily at the location first talked about, but there's a strong impulse on their part to come to our town, partly because it's so patriotic, the way we demonstrate that. And I think if both these institutions get going, they'll add to the fabric of our life, along with so many other fine institutions of our town. And I hope that'll happen during this year of 2016. And it is good now that we have a fresh start, a new year, 2016. And I congratulate everybody in your resolutions. And let's, as the Vice Chairman says, let's work together and hold ourselves to these resolutions and make this great town even better during the year 2016.
Town Administrator, agenda items?
Just a couple items. The first one, welcoming the students back to school. I know they had a little time off, but it's time to get back to the hard work, and I'm sure they're thrilled to be back, and I know Russian students will be arriving soon. But our students are back, so we just have to be cautious as we travel on our travels just as a whole. Also, with the word of caution, with the weather getting colder, to be careful with the animals, folks that have pets, not to leave them outdoors under the cold weather, as well as checking neighbors. Anyone who has a neighbor who potentially may need some assistance, please check on them, make sure that they are okay, and if I can be of any assistance, don't hesitate to reach me if I can be of assistance. Other than that, Happy New Year, and thank you to all.
Okay, we have a couple of items that were withheld from the consent agenda, the first being item CC1. That is the periodic revenue and expenditure statement.
Julie, I had a couple of questions. Page 5 is the Finance Department, and we're at 99.9% on IT and support. Is that the software purchase or something that was...
Yes, those are our annual charges, and they get paid up in the beginning of the year.
Okay, that was a straightforward one. The next one was Public Works building maintenance. I think I know the answer because I've been there recently and saw a new roof put on, but we're...
To add to that, though, Kevin and I have spoken about that account, and we're going, some of those expenses, for example, garage doors.
Sorry,
there's
that's page 7,
a couple of items that are better classified under our capital, and so I'm going to be working with Kevin to kind of go through that budget and determine the capital items that we really should classify out of the operating budget. So you'll see that number change likely before the next council meeting.
Okay. So the reason why I was asking the question, this was 414%, and it kind of...
Yes, jumps out at you.
Yeah, it jumped it out at me and said, what's wrong here? And I think I had one more that you...
You did. It is H...
No, on this one,
I'm
sorry. Two more things. Human Resources, just a side note to say that if you look at page 12, most of the human resource, for example, the Mount Hope Wrestling, King Philip Little League, American Legion Boys, all took their checks. And I know that over the last couple of years it was a slow and arduous process, so whatever you're doing and whatever Cheryl is doing, this is excellent. I'm glad that people are in front of us to ask for this, and I'm also glad to see that it's being taken advantage of.
I have to thank Cheryl for that. She's been following up on that.
Spectacular. Last one was on page 14, which is debt service. I saw that the bond issuance cost was really high, but is that because of we'll call it a refi of those bonds? Is that what those were?
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at the detail of that account and see. It may just be a timing issue on the SRF borrowing that we do with the Clean Water, well, now Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. That one typically falls right before the fiscal year end. The timing was a little different this time.
Could you share that in our next meeting?
Yep, certainly.
Perfect. Thank you. Can I have a motion to receive and file this?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And also, you have the item HH7.
I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, that there was a meeting with local reps, senators, the administrator, the chairman of the council in Warren, president of the council, sorry, in Warren, and myself to discuss the funding formula, and more specifically to share information with the funding formula study committee, which was put together by the governor. The goal behind this is to help us go, or either keep what we have right now or go to a better place, meaning that we'll call it the bonus that we all used to get, and every year we have less and less coming from the state. It's to have a unified voice that we can work together to either lock in where we are right now, which is $753,000 less than last year, which is $753,000 less than the year before, and I'll keep going and going there. So if we can stop that slip slide and landslide, but we're working together. This was the first meeting. There will be more of them, but this letter went out, and it included our reps and senators, local, and then everyone I've already mentioned. So I want everybody to know that this hasn't gone on the wayside, and as it progresses, I'll keep everybody in the loop. So, any questions on this? No? Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, to request an executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws, Section 42-46-5A2, litigation, dealing with a review of the litigation status report.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.